welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for deciding to click on today's video. It is going to be a review and tutorial using the brand new James Charles and Morphe palette. This is the Artistry palette. I've been getting a ton of requests to review this palette for you guys, so I'm going to be doing it in today's video. I'm also going to be showing you guys a little tutorial on this look right here. I will also be using the palette with Tarte Shape Tape and also a Morphe eye base. So I'll be showing you guys like the differences and how the shadows apply with both primers. So if you guys are ready to see this review, go ahead and keep on watching. Getting started, this is James's first collaboration with Morphe. He came out with the palette right here, which is the Artistry palette, and then also a brush collection. I opted out of getting the brush collection, but he did come out with a brush that's with this collaboration. Now, he has done some work with Morphe in the past, but he's never like created his own palette, so this is his first palette with them. This is the Artistry palette. Here is what the packaging looks like. It is just a black, sleek packaging. You have James Charles' name here. The outer unicarton is really, really cute. It has this picture of him. It also says James Charles Morphe. You can't really see because it's white. It also has a message here on the back. It says, "Hi sisters, James Charles here, and welcome back to my palette. Love glam, but I also have a huge passion for crazy, colorful, outside of the box makeup, and I created this palette with that in mind. I included every beautifully formulated shade necessary to create literally any look you could possibly imagine. I can't wait to see the looks you come up with when you unleash your inner artist," which is like the slogan for this campaign. So let's talk about the palette right here. So again, here's what it looks like. It does have 39 different shades in here. So here is what the inside of the palette looks like. The idea behind this palette is that you will have any shade you need to create like basically any look. You can create warm looks with this palette. You can create fun and bright looks with this palette. So basically he designed it for anyone and everyone is what he said. It basically a all over palette that if you're someone who doesn't have a large makeup collection, you could just have just this one palette in your collection and be able to create a ton of different looks with it. So getting into the packaging, you are gonna have just this sheet right here with all of the names on it. That is one of the cons I do have with this palette. I wish that the names were actually in the packaging. I kind of don't love it when it has like these plastic sheets. I'll probably just tape mine here so I can tell like what shade is what, because I will lose this. This is the same thing that was in the 39A. It just kind of sat over top like this, and I actually lost that for that palette. If you guys do not know, this palette is basically a mock-up of that palette. It has the same design with those larger pans here in the middle and then all of the smaller pans. I did really enjoy the 39A palette. That is one that he helped Morphe with the packaging and everything like that for, and I did really enjoy that palette. Another con though, what I will say is that this is a very large palette, so if you're someone who prefers smaller things like when storing and stuff like that, this is definitely a larger palette, which is another problem what I had with the 39A, but I don't actually mind it with this palette because I feel like there is a lot of bright shades in here. This kind of replaced the Morphe 35B palette, which is one of my favorite palettes from Morphe because it has such bright colors in it. So this kind of has replaced that palette for me. So I'm okay with it being larger because it does have a lot of those bright shades in. You guys know I love wearing colors. So for me, I'm okay with this size because it does have a lot of different variety in the palette. The palette retails for $39. So it is $39 for the 39 shades. So you're typically paying $1 a shade. Also, you can get it at Ulta, which is great, which is where I purchased mine. You could also purchase it at Morphe. Ulta let me use the $3.50 off a $15 purchase on this palette, so that was great. And then you can also use 10% off codes at Morphe as well. I was excited to see it coming into Ulta so soon. I feel like brands normally will like release something and then weeks and weeks later it'll come into Ulta. So I like the idea that it came into Ulta that same week. So I just opted to go ahead and buy it in store. That way I would get it quicker. So I have had it since Friday, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys my thoughts on the formula really quickly, and then we will go into the eye look. So the formula on this palette I think is really, really nice. I've used it. This is my 4th eye look I've created with it. So I have created some neutral looks. I ended up using a lot of these tones right here to create a neutral look. I've also used the purples in here and the pink. I did that on Friday's PR unboxing if you guys want to see that look. And then obviously for today's look, I used all of the blues in the palette. I have also used this one here as a highlight, and it is really, really pretty as a highlight as well. So let's go ahead and do some swatches really quickly, and then we will move on to the tutorial. For the swatches, I'm gonna work in rows of 8. So I'm gonna be showing you guys these first shades first, these first 8. So here are swatches of all of those. Here are the next 8 shades from the palette. And then here are a swatch of the 7 middle shades. I will say that white, I did have to go over that one 4 different times to get it to be even that opaque. And here are the next 8 shades. I feel like this is my favorite 8. They're just so unique. All right, and then here are the last 8 shades from the palette. So getting started, I'm going to prep my lid with Tarte Shape Tape on one side and then the Morphe Primer on the other. To begin the tutorial, I'm going to go in with the shade Brother, and you can see here kind of how much pigment you get when you do first apply it. I am using the patting motions like James recommended in his video. So I'll basically just go back and forth patting this on, kind of packing it on, and then I will blend it out a little more towards the end. I definitely worked with this shade the longest. I really took my time trying to kind of build it up the best I could. And then also when I was blending it out, I did spend the most time with this shade. Next up, I picked up the shade Playground, and I am just placing that shade on top of the shade Brother. I really kind of just focus this more on the outer edge here and pat it again, and then I will go ahead and blend it out in a bit. So just again, tapping it on, and then you can see here I'm kind of just blending it a little more in. For the shimmer, I applied the shade Hello all over my lid, and I opted to use my finger for this. I prefer my finger most of the time for metallic shades. I just find that it works best when applying them. They just go on the most pigmented that way. So I'm just doing the same thing on the other side. And then in a second here, I'm just gonna grab a brush, and I'm going to apply a little bit more with the brush just so I can get the inner corners, and then also help to kind of blend it in with the blue shade that we have as well. Just going back in with the shade Brother and just further making sure all of those edges are blended. I am on the phone, so if you see me kind of talking or laughing, I am talking to my sister as I was filming this. For the lower lash line, I'm actually using the shade Cola, and then I go into the shade Brother kind of all underneath the lash line. For my lashes, I used the lashes from Rogue & Rogue. They are in Nirvana, and I love these lashes. They are just so dramatic and so easy to apply. Lastly, just coating them with a little bit of mascara just to help blend them with my regular lashes. All right, so getting into my final thoughts on the palette, I do think it is really good quality. I really enjoyed it, and like you guys seen, I didn't see much of a difference using it with the eye base and then using it with the Shape Tape, because I know he said some of these are pressed pigments, they're not regular eyeshadows, and I was kind of like hesitant when I heard that. I was like, how are these gonna perform? Am I gonna like them? But I've had no issues whatsoever trying to blend them out. I've had no issues with like colors not being pigmented or anything. I find that you do have to go into them quite a few times to get the color payoff that you want, but I personally don't mind that with my eyeshadows. I actually prefer that, so that I'm not going in like too harsh right away and it's hard to blend out. I like building it up. I find that easier to work with. So I definitely think this is a palette that would be friendly to everyone. I think beginners could get use out of this palette, and then also more advanced artists could also use this palette as well. So if you are a fan of James, I definitely think this is a great palette. If you're not a fan of James, this would be a good one to have in your collection. If you're into those brighter shades and things like that, obviously if you're someone who only wears neutrals, this wouldn't really be for you. Also, as I said, it's a larger palette, so if you're someone who doesn't have room to like store a palette like this, then that might not be something that you would need. But I definitely think the quality is there. I think it's a great palette, so if you've been wanting to pick it up and you were just kind of wanting to see more reviews on it, I definitely would recommend it to you guys. But that is going to do it for today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Do not forget to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel before you guys go, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, friends. Bye, friends. Shut up.